All right, so we're tying the Para Midge today. This is an awesome little midge dry fly pattern. Tying it on the Firehole 316 hook in a size 18 here. Just gonna start my thread right on top on the shank there. And then we can come in and add our posts, our parachute posts. I'm gonna do a foam post on this one using the Wapsi parachute posts. Super easy material to work with. I always kind of take my post when I'm working on smaller sizes like this. This is the size small, and I'll kind of stretch it out just a little bit to even a slimmer diameter before I come up to tie it in. So we're going to lay it right on top, a couple of quick securing wraps, and then a few in front before we kind of work down just a little bit, snugging that foam to the hook shank before we come up on in and clip it out. And then we can work on our post here and just make sure that it's kind of sticking straight up, perpendicular to the hook shank. And then we'll cover over the tag end of that foam and just work to build a slight taper around it. And then I'll do a couple quick wraps around it, and that thing is nice and secure. So we can work on back. So now that we have our post secured, we can come in and tie in our tail material. So for that, I have just a couple of strands of our pearl crystal flash here. And I'm just going to secure those on top of the hook shank. And work my way down the bend. I like these tails to kind of stick downward into the water. Just a little bit of flash. Help to capture some attention. The fish are looking up. So we'll go a good ways down that hook shank, and then we can work our thread back forward and out of the way here so that we can finish up with those tails. So we'll go up just to the hook eye. I'm just going to half hitch real quick. So before we dub our body, which we'll go back and do, just going to melt these tails down ever so slightly. So I'm going to trim them first, short here. Maybe just a little bit more. And then we can come in and burn them. So I always turn my vise sideways because it helps to avoid burning stuff that you don't want to. We'll come in and we're just going to try and tap them so that they don't light on fire. And just singe them down ever so slightly there. From there, we can go and finish up our body. So I'm going to head back to the rear of the hook here and go ahead and dub it on forward. So I'm going to use the Adams Superfine dubbing, the Adams Gray. For this pattern, you could do BWO variations and other small mayfly variations as well, just by switching up the color slightly of the dubbing and the hackle. So we'll create a nice tight dubbing noodle with the Superfine. I'm using a little bit of Loon dubbing wax to help me with that. And we'll just start to build a taper right up to where that foam is. I'm going to stop right behind it and tie in my hackle feather. So I'm using a whiting grizzly hackle feather for this fly. Kind of a traditional color here. And so I'll prep my feather. Just going to clip some of that webby fiber off and then come in and trim out some of the barbels there so that I have a tie-in point. And for this fly, we're going to lay it right on top, flat on top. You could do shiny side up, shiny side down. Some debate over that. I always tend to do shiny side up, just how I've always done it. And they look good in your box that way. So a few wraps in front to secure it, and then I'm going to sneak behind. And then I'm going to come up and secure this feather to the post with a few wraps. So that'll be inevitably where we wrap it. And then we can finish stubbing out this fly. Pretty similar process to tying a parachute Adams, just changing out a few materials and using a curved shank hook versus a straight shank hook. We'll create a smaller W noodle this time around, keeping it nice and tight on there. Whenever you're working with superfine, you want to kind of keep it tight, and the idea is that the fibers are so fine that it won't get waterlogged easily, versus some of the pickier dubbings out there. Once you're happy with your body, I got one more wrap there. Can rest our thread there and wrap our hackle. I'm just going to do about 3 or 4 wraps around the post. I always kind of do them somewhat light, and then I'll kind of snug them tight there, and then I can come around with my thread and capture that tag end off, just like so. Come in and clip out the excess, real careful, and then we can whip finish. See if I can do this in front of the camera without bumping everything. So we're going to whip finish around the post, being careful not to trap any of our wraps against the body. If you watch the Parachute Adam video that I didn't notice when I was doing this step that I got trapped around the hook eye and left my thread around the body. So that's a good example of what not to do there. Once we have that nice and tight, we can clip out our thread. We'll fluff out our hackle a little bit here. Clip out anything that we trapped. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of super glue. And then we can trim our post as well. I like a nice short post on these, just enough so that you can see it. Like so, and a little bit of glue. And there's a completed Para Midge. Awesome little dry fly pattern. Works great all through the winter. Kind of a go-to winter dry fly for me in a lot of situations, but it'll also fish great all through the year.